Good morning, Sara. I am delighted to interview you today. Thank you for your time. How's your day going so far?
It's going very well, thanks.
Great. So I'd like to start with an introduction. Sara Smith spent nearly 30 years with IBM as a sales representative, manager, leader, internal consultant, and coach. Since then, she has continued working to transform organizations. She has worked with CEOs, CFOs, international sales executives, and their teams. One of her specialties is to help accelerate cross-organizational teaming to create new businesses and strategic alliances. Sara has distinguished herself through her variety of approaches, tools, and experiences. She's a master at helping people change, increase their effectiveness as leaders, and reinvent their organizations. She creates the future one leader at a time. Now let's start with our first question. I am eager to know more about your coaching path. Tell us about your first days and how you became an established coach.
Well, it's when I was working for IBM, we were beginning to turn the company around. It was in 2001. And I was part of the global transformation team. We were teaching coaching skills to managers. And it became apparent that some of the managers wanted to work with coaches. So I became a coach then, went to CTI classes, and became a coach. And some of my first clients were managers who'd been in my training. And so I went through CTI workshops and certification while I was with IBM. And then I continued to coach internally in IBM for the next 6 years. I coached executives and their teams. I coached executives in their full organizations. I coached high performance salespeople, and I coached people who were being hired into the company to make sure that they made their transition in, some biotechnology specialists. So I coached in a variety of places and was really able to hone my skills in that environment.
My second question for our viewers is, what are, in your opinion, the key ingredients to success?
Great question. There are a couple of answers to that. If you are an internal coach, the key to success is making coaching part of what you do and not all of what you do, in my experience. It means that you bring value to the company and you do it by way of coaching. So coaching is a means to the end, not the end. So I was a coach as part of what I did. I was actually a transformational consultant. I think that works externally. I left IBM in 2007. And started my own business. And so I went from a secure coaching environment to one where I had to create my own opportunities. And the same thing applies. Coaching is the means to an end. That's why I say that I create the future one leader at a time. I look for leaders who have vision and who want something for themselves, want something for their company. We're all about facilitating change, and that's the way I lead in as a coach. I don't just market myself as an executive coach. I market myself as someone who creates change.
My next question is about your personal life lessons. What's your best advice in terms of life tips?
You know, as a coach, focusing on continuing the personal journey of learning. As a coach, I find that I'm asking my clients to learn a lot about themselves and to look at themselves in the world differently. If I'm not doing the same thing, then I get stale. So I've been to a number of coaching schools, and every year I set out to determine what I want to learn, areas that are interesting where I can continue my own personal self-development. It's a critical part of my connecting with my clients if I'm on the same kind of journey they're on.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for those wise words. Finally, my last question is about your book, Coach to Coach, Emotional Intelligence and Leadership for Winning Coaches. Tell us how and who this book can help.
I wrote it for athletic coaches. I've worked in that environment for the last 4 years. And what I've discovered is that athletic coaches, and by the way, it can be leaders in a lot of different environments who get there because they're really good at what they do.
Okay.
Athletes are the perfect example. You're a great athlete, so you become a coach. What they don't get is, how do you become a leader? How do you make an organization work? How do you motivate people without telling them what to do?
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting, and even as I say that, Nathalie, the thing that keeps coming to mind is that the same holds true in business. One of the things that athletic coaches really struggle with is the impact of competition. You know, they're so highly competitive. Individual contributors are a good thing. I mean, you want the people on your team to be competitive. But a highly competitive leader has a dark side as well as a bright side. Mm-hmm. And I help leaders see that and deal with it. Mm-hmm. So it's primarily for athletic coaches. They lead incredibly complex organizations that they have to lead through influence, influential power, not positional power, because they've got fans and parents and alumni and donors and lots of people who don't report to them, but they've got to get along with them and lead them in many ways. So that's who the book is aimed at, although I have a neighbor who read it and she said you ought to sell it to parents. So I teach coaches, I teach athletic coaches coaching skills, mm-hmm. listening and good questions. I teach them emotional intelligence, how to self-manage, how to understand themselves, their own triggers, and how to manage those. Mm-hmm. How to translate that into effective relationships with staff and student athletes. So it really is aimed at amateur coaches or coaches in the amateur environment. They're professional coaches, university, high school, travel teams, that sort of thing.
Well, thank you so much, Sara, for giving away these bits of advice to our viewers. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
You know, there is, Nathalie, and thanks for asking me that. When you were asking about my personal journey and learning, mm-hmm. one thing that I would tell coaches and anybody, one of the greatest personal learnings I had was that when I was working on my master coach certification, it's a tough certification. It is coaching in its purest essence. And one of the greatest experiences I ever had is I took the exam and failed it. Now, to take the exam, you have to have 25 hours of billable coaching. That's 8 to 10 years worth of work. So quite a lot of coaching. And I thought I had it, whatever it was. And the first time I took the exam, I flunked it rather soundly. And it was a shock. It was a disappointment. I got angry. I did all of those things that we do when things don't work out. And then I had to decide if I really wanted to be a master coach, both mm-hmm. really be a master coach and get the certification. I had to come to grips with the fact that my coaching might not be as good as I thought it was. Mm-hmm. That all of those things that you struggle with in when somebody says you're not good enough. And I decided to make that journey again. And it took a couple of years. And I had to reinvent my coaching. And I had to look very honestly at the way I do my work. Mm-hmm. And what I've discovered is that the path to great coaching, probably the path to great anything, it's an aspirational path. Mm-hmm. I know that I'll never get there and be there forever. I always have to aspire to mastery in what I do. And every time I pick up the phone to work with a client or walk in a room to face them, I've got to remember who I am and be the best me I can be. That's the lesson I learned. It's humbling, it's empowering, and it's ongoing.
Yes, very nice. Thank you again, Sara, and to our viewers. If you want to learn more about Sara Smith, you can check out her websites www.slweb.net or www.coach2coach.info, or you can also email her directly at scsmith@slweb.net. Thank you and have a wonderful day.